What if I told you that when Jesus died, the Earth sent out a pulse so powerful that an alien civilization detected it from across the galaxy? And what if that alien just revealed to an electrician in Kentucky that everything we've been taught about faith is incomplete? I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the electromagnetic signature of pure consciousness that rippled through space 2,000 years ago, a signal that's been tracked, studied, and finally explained by a being who came here to fix his ship and ended up fixing a broken man instead. This information has been hidden from you, not by governments, but by our own inability to understand what Jesus actually was, a frequency elevator. Once you see what this extraterrestrial showed Travis about the human heart's transmission power, there's no going back. This will shatter your understanding of prayer, but it might also reconnect you to something you felt was missing your entire life. If you're ready to discover why alien civilizations have been watching humanity since the crucifixion, subscribe and activate the bell. Because what happened to Travis Ellington on that dark Kentucky road will change how you see every moment of your spiritual existence. Now, let me tell you how it all began. Travis Ellington was 48 years old the night everything changed. He drove his pickup down the empty rural highway outside Harlan County, Kentucky, wipers cutting through the October drizzle. The road stretched dark ahead. No streetlights out here, just asphalt, trees, and the occasional farmhouse light flickering in the distance. His body ached the way it always did after a 12-hour shift, shoulders tight, lower back throbbing, hands calloused and scarred from years of working alone in barns, grain silos, and electrical towers scattered across forgotten corners of the state. Travis had been an electrician for 26 years, good at his job, reliable, the kind of guy who showed up on time, fixed what needed fixing, and left without small talk. But somewhere along the way, he'd started feeling invisible, like a wire that had burned out inside. He couldn't remember the last time he'd prayed, really prayed. Not the automatic, bless this food kind of prayer, but the kind where you actually believed someone was listening. 5 years ago, his wife left, packed her things while he was out on a job, didn't leave a note, just her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. He didn't blame her. He'd been checked out long before she walked out the door, working extra shifts to avoid going home, sitting in his truck in the driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. Numb, distant, disconnected. She deserved better than a man who'd forgotten how to feel. The divorce papers came 2 months later. He signed them without a fight. And somewhere in the middle of all that, he stopped going to church, stopped opening his Bible, stopped pretending he had any faith left. God had given up on him. Or maybe he'd given up on God. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. Now his life was just a loop. Drive to the job, fix the problem, drive home, microwave something, fall asleep in front of the TV, wake up, repeat. Tonight was no different. The dispatch call had come in around 9 p.m. Power outage near Route 421. Transformer probably blown. Standard stuff. Travis turned off the highway onto a gravel access road, the truck bouncing over potholes. The distribution tower came into view, a dark skeletal silhouette against the clouded sky. He parked, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped out into the damp night air. The silence hit him first. No crickets, no wind, just nothing. He stood there for a moment, flashlight beam cutting through the mist. Something felt off. He couldn't name it. Just a heaviness in his chest that had nothing to do with the ache in his muscles. Travis thought about his ex-wife. Wondered if she was happy now. Wondered if she ever thought about him. Probably not. He shook his head and started walking toward the tower. The wet grass soaked through his boots. The air smelled like rain and rust. His breath formed small clouds in the cold. He felt the weight in his chest grow heavier with each step. That weight had been there for years now. A dull, constant pressure. Like something inside him had died, but his body kept going anyway. Spiritually disconnected. That's what the pastor had called it once, back when Travis still went to church. You're spiritually disconnected, brother. You need to plug back into the source. Travis had nodded, smiled, shaken the man's hand. But he didn't know how to plug back in. Didn't even know if he wanted to anymore. The tower loomed above him now, metal beams slick with moisture. He clipped his safety harness and started checking the breaker panel at the base. Everything looked normal. No blown fuses, no tripped circuits, nothing that would explain a full blackout. He sighed. This was going to take longer than he thought. Travis aimed his flashlight up at the transformer. He'd have to climb to check the connections. He grabbed the first rung, and that's when the sky lit up. Not lightning, not headlights, something else, pulsing, bright, blue-white and strange. Travis froze, one hand on the ladder, staring at the light beyond the tree line. His heart started pounding. The light pulsed again, closer this time, and then he heard it. Or rather, he didn't hear it. Silence, complete silence. Even his own breathing seemed muffled, like the air itself had thickened. Travis stepped away from the tower, flashlight trembling in his hand. The light flashed once more, and then the sky fell. Travis didn't think. He just moved. He climbed the tower fast, boots clanging against wet metal. His hands found each rung automatically, muscle memory taking over where his racing mind couldn't. He reached the transformer platform and stopped. His breath came hard and fast. From up here he could see over the tree line, and that's when he saw it clearly. Lights, pulsing, moving, dancing across the sky about half a mile out. Not airplane lights, not helicopters, not anything he'd ever seen before. They moved wrong, too fast, then too slow, then perfectly still, hovering like they'd forgotten how gravity worked. Travis gripped the railing, his knuckles white. What the hell? The lights flashed brighter, brighter, then suddenly dropped. Not fell, dropped, like someone had cut the strings. The object, because it was definitely an object, definitely solid, descended through the clouds in complete silence. Travis watched it disappear behind the tree line. A moment later, he felt it, a tremor through the ground, through the metal tower, through his bones. Not an explosion, not a crash, just impact. The vegetation behind the tower bent and snapped. Trees groaned, branches cracked like gunshots in the silence. Then nothing, just the sound of his own breathing and the rain starting to fall harder. Travis stood frozen on the platform. Every rational part of his brain was screaming at him to get down. Get in the truck, drive away, call someone, call anyone. But his body wouldn't move. He stared at the woods where the thing had fallen. A faint blue glow pulsed through the trees, soft, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Travis's hands shook. This isn't real, he whispered. This isn't happening. But it was. He climbed down slowly, each rung taking forever. His legs felt like water. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might burst. When he reached the ground, he stood there. The blue light pulsed beyond the tree line. He should leave. He should absolutely leave. But something in him, something he thought had died 5 years ago, wouldn't let him. Travis gripped his flashlight tighter and started walking. The wet grass whispered against his boots. The rain tapped against his jacket hood. His breath came in short, shallow bursts. The air felt wrong now. Thick, electric, like the moment before a lightning strike. Except the moment kept stretching and never breaking. He reached the edge of the clearing and stopped. The trees had been pushed outward, bent and broken in a perfect circle. In the center of that circle sat something that shouldn't exist. A craft, sleek, metallic, maybe 20 feet across. The hull looked almost liquid in the dim light, shifting between silver and dark gray. Blue light pulsed from cracks in the surface, gentle and steady like a heartbeat. Steam, or something like steam, rose from the damaged sections. Travis took a step forward. His flashlight beam caught the details. Symbols etched into the metal. Strange angles that hurt to look at directly. And damage. Significant damage along one side where the craft had impacted. Sparks flickered silently from an exposed panel. Travis's mind raced. This is crazy. This is insane. I'm dreaming. I hit my head climbing the tower. This isn't real. But his hand hurt from gripping the flashlight too hard. His feet were soaked through. The cold rain ran down the back of his neck. This was real. He took another step. The blue light pulsed brighter. And then he heard it. No, not heard. Felt. A voice. Inside his mind. Soft. Calm. Gentle as the rain. Please, don't be afraid. Travis froze. His entire body locked up. His breath stopped. The voice came again. I need help. The energy systems are failing. You understand machines. You can help. Travis's flashlight slipped from his hand and hit the ground, the beam spinning wild across the wet grass. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I mean you no harm. I'm injured. My ship is damaged. Please. The voice wasn't threatening, wasn't aggressive. It sounded tired. Travis bent slowly and picked up his flashlight. hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it again. He aimed the beam at the craft, and that's when he saw it. A figure, standing near the damaged section. Gray, translucent skin, thin limbs, large dark eyes that reflected his flashlight beam back at him. The being stood perfectly still, watching him, waiting. Travis's mind screamed at him to run, but something else, something deeper, whispered one word: stay. The gray figure moved, slowly, carefully, like it understood that any sudden motion might send Travis running into the darkness. It stood fully now, maybe 4.5 feet tall, slender, almost fragile looking. The translucent gray skin seemed to shimmer slightly in the pulsing blue light from the damaged craft, but it was the eyes that held Travis frozen, large, black, endless. They reflected his flashlight beam back at him, but there was something else there too, something he couldn't name. Calm, complete, absolute calm. Travis felt two things at once, and they didn't make sense together. Fear, raw, primal fear that screamed at him to run, and compassion, deep, aching compassion for this injured creature standing in the rain. The being tilted its head slightly, gently, like a question. Travis's breath came in short gasps. His legs trembled. The blue light from the craft pulsed steadier now, casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own across the bent trees and wet ground. And then Travis saw something else. Behind the being, forming slowly like dawn light, a soft golden glow began to appear. Not harsh, not bright, gentle, warm, a halo. Travis blinked, shook his head, but the golden light remained, hovering behind the creature like something sacred. The voice came again, inside his mind, soft as a whisper. I need energy. You understand machines. You know how to restore power. Travis opened his mouth, closed it, tried to speak and couldn't. How did this thing know what he did for a living? How did it know anything about him? I can sense your knowledge, your skill. Please, my ship is dying, and when it dies, so do I. The words hit him like a physical blow. This creature was dying. Travis looked at the damaged craft. Sparks still flickered from the exposed panel. The blue light pulsed weaker now, slower, like a heartbeat struggling to keep going. The air around them vibrated with a soft electrical charge. Travis could feel it on his skin, in his teeth, humming at a frequency just below hearing. The ship wasn't just metal and circuits. It was connected to the being somehow, living together, dying together. Travis took a step forward, then stopped. His mind raced. This was insane. This violated everything he understood about reality, about what was possible. But the creature just stood there, waiting, patient, calm. I don't want to hurt you, Travis thought. And the being responded immediately, without sound, the words appearing fully formed in his mind. You won't. You can't. Your intention is pure. I feel it. Travis felt dizzy. The mental communication was overwhelming. Not painful, but strange. Alien. Like someone had opened a door in his head that he didn't know existed. He steadied himself, one hand against a broken tree trunk. The being hadn't moved. Just stood there, those massive black eyes watching him with something that felt almost like trust. Travis had spent 5 years feeling nothing. 5 years of numbness, emptiness, going through motions without meaning. But right now, standing in this impossible clearing with this impossible creature, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Purpose. Okay, he said out loud, his voice rough. Okay, I'll try. The being tilted its head again, and Travis could swear he saw relief in those dark eyes. Thank you. Come, I will show you. The creature turned slowly and walked toward the damaged section of the craft. Travis followed. Each step felt surreal, like walking through a dream. But the wet grass was real. The cold rain was real. The ache in his legs was real. This was happening. As he got closer, he could see the damage more clearly. A section of the hull had cracked open on impact, exposing an interior that looked nothing like any machine he'd ever worked on. But somehow, deep down, he understood it. The blue light pulsed from within. Soft cables that looked almost organic shifted gently, like breathing. And at the center, visible through the crack, a crystalline structure glowed weakly, cracked, failing. The being stopped beside the opening and gestured with one long, delicate hand. The core is damaged. Energy flow is disrupted. It needs coherence. Alignment. Travis stepped closer. The interior of the craft was beautiful, terrifying and beautiful. Nothing was angular or mechanical in the way he knew machines. Everything curved, everything flowed. The cables weren't cables exactly, they were channels of light that moved like water through impossible geometry. "I don't know if I can fix this," Travis said quietly. "You can. You already understand. You've been fixing broken connections your whole life." The words hit him harder than they should have. Broken connections. That's all he'd been doing, wasn't it? For 26 years. Finding what was disconnected and making it whole again. Except he'd never learned how to fix the connections in his own life. The being stood beside him, silent now, giving him space to think. Travis looked at the damaged core, at the fractured crystal pulsing weakly, at the displaced energy channels that needed realignment. And somehow, impossibly, he knew what to do. Not because the being told him, but because something inside him recognized it, like remembering something he'd always known but forgotten. "Okay," Travis said again, setting down his flashlight. "Let me get my tools." He walked back to his truck, moving on autopilot now, grabbed his tool bag, his multimeter, wire strippers, electrical tape, everything he'd used 1,000 times before. When he returned to the clearing, the being was exactly where he'd left it, waiting, patient. The golden halo behind it glowed a little brighter. Travis knelt beside the opening in the hull, tools spread out on the wet ground beside him. His hands shook, but he took a deep breath, and he began. Travis's fingers found the edge of the damaged panel. The metal, if it was metal, felt warm, alive, like touching skin rather than machinery. He pulled gently, and the panel opened further with a soft sound, almost organic, not the screech of twisted steel, but something gentler, more like a sigh. Inside, the craft breathed. That was the only word for it. The interior pulsed with blue light, steady and rhythmic. Cables, no, not cables, something else, shifted and moved with an almost liquid grace. They glowed from within, carrying energy that looked like light but felt like something more, like consciousness flowing through veins. Travis stared. In 26 years of electrical work, he'd never seen anything like this, but his hands knew what to do anyway. At the center of the damaged section, a crystalline structure pulsed weakly, about the size of a softball, multifaceted, with fractures running through it like cracks in ice. The light inside flickered, unstable, dying. The being moved closer, not touching, just observing. Those large black eyes tracked every movement Travis made. The voice came soft in his mind again. "Coherent energy restores. You know how to reconnect. Trust yourself. Trust yourself." Travis almost laughed. He hadn't trusted himself in years. Every decision he'd made in the last decade felt like a mistake. The marriage, the divorce, the isolation, the slow death of his faith. What was there to trust? But his hands moved anyway. He reached into his tool bag and pulled out his multimeter, held it near one of the glowing channels. The reading spiked wildly, then settled into a pattern. Frequency, voltage, something else he couldn't identify. "The energy flow is disrupted," Travis said quietly, talking to himself more than the being. "The crystal is cracked, so the distribution is uneven. The whole system is destabilizing." "Yes, you see it clearly." Travis grabbed a small pry tool and carefully examined the crystal housing. The fracture wasn't complete. The crystal could be stabilized if he could realign the energy channels feeding into it. He looked at the glowing cables, conduits, really, that connected to the crystal. 3 of them had pulled loose during the crash, their light dim and flickering. "I need to reconnect these," Travis said, "but I don't know if my tools will work on whatever this is. Your intention matters more than your tools. Energy follows consciousness. You understand this already, even if you don't believe it." Travis frowned. Energy follows consciousness? That didn't make sense. But he didn't have time to question it. He reached for the first loose conduit. His fingers touched it, and warmth spread up his arm. Not painful, not electric, just alive. The ship responded to him. He felt it clearly now, a connection forming, like the craft recognized his touch, his intention to help. Travis carefully guided the conduit back toward its connection point on the crystal housing. It resisted at first, then suddenly shifted, moving almost on its own, finding its proper place and locking in with the soft pulse of light. The blue glow brightened slightly. Travis exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. The being remained still, watching with those impossibly calm eyes. Peaceful, patient. Travis reached for the second conduit. This one was more damaged, the light inside barely visible. He held it gently, feeling for the energy signature, trying to understand how it worked. And then, without thinking, he did something strange. He closed his eyes, focused, not on the mechanics, but on the intention. Help, heal, restore. The conduit warmed in his hand. The light inside began to pulse stronger. Travis guided it back to its connection point, and it snapped into place, the blue light flowing through it like water finding its course. The ship hummed. Travis opened his eyes, startled. The entire craft was vibrating now, a low frequency he could feel in his chest. Not struggling, not dying, responding. "You're doing it," the being's voice whispered in his mind. "You understand." Travis didn't understand. Not really, but he kept working. The third conduit, the most damaged. The light inside was almost dead. He held it carefully, closed his eyes again, and focused. Reconnect, restore, make whole. The warmth spread through his hands, up his arms, into his chest, and for just a moment Travis wasn't thinking about the alien ship. He was thinking about his ex-wife, her face. The last day she'd looked at him with hope, before the hope died, before the distance grew too wide to cross. The pain of that memory hit him sharp and clear. He'd been disconnected then too, burned out, unable to give her what she needed, unable to give himself what he needed. Tears stung his eyes, but his hands didn't stop working. He guided the third conduit into place, and it locked with a bright pulse of light. The crystal blazed. The blue light surged through all the channels now, strong and coherent. The fractures in the crystal were still there, but the energy flow was stable, balanced. The ship was alive again. Travis sat back on his heels, breathing hard. The being stepped closer, the golden halo behind it glowing brighter now, warm and radiant. "You have reconnected more than a ship," the voice said gently. Travis looked up at the creature. He didn't understand the words, but he felt their truth somewhere deep inside. The panel pulsed with steady blue light now, strong, coherent, alive. Travis sat back on the wet ground, his hands still trembling slightly from the work, from the connection he'd felt, from something he couldn't name. The being moved closer, silent, graceful. The golden halo behind it intensified, growing warmer, brighter, casting soft light across the clearing that mixed with the blue glow from the ship. Travis looked up at the creature, and the voice came again, gentle but clear. Jesus was not a religious symbol. Travis froze. The name hit him like a physical blow. Sacred, untouchable. The name he'd grown up with. The name he'd abandoned 5 years ago when faith became too painful to hold. He was a frequency elevator. "What?" Travis whispered out loud. The being tilted its head, those large black eyes reflecting both the blue light and the golden glow. "Your species misunderstood his purpose. He didn't come to create religion. He came to show you what's possible when love and truth align consciousness." Travis felt his chest tighten. I don't understand." "You do. You just experienced it." The being gestured toward the repaired ship. "You didn't fix this with tools alone. You fixed it with intention, with focused consciousness, with the desire to help, to heal, to restore. That's what he taught. That's what your people forgot." Travis shook his head slowly. "Jesus was the Son of God. That's what I was taught." "And what is God?" The question hung in the air. Travis opened his mouth, closed it. He didn't know how to answer. "Your species doesn't understand yet. Thought creates form. Consciousness shapes reality. What you focus on, what you believe deeply, becomes manifest. This is law, universal law, as real as gravity." The light from the ship began to shift. Travis watched as it projected patterns onto the ground around them. Spirals, sacred geometry, forms that seemed to breathe and move. On the ship's panel, a symbol lit up for the first time. A spiral, golden, rotating slowly. "The human heart is a natural transmitter of light," the being continued. "When aligned with truth, with love, with compassion, it generates frequency that affects everything around it. Matter, energy, other consciousness." Jesus understood this completely. Travis felt warmth spreading through his chest. Not painful, not frightening, just present, like something waking up inside him that had been asleep for years. "I don't know if I believe this," he said quietly. Belief is not required for truth to exist, but belief amplifies manifestation. That's why faith matters. Not faith as hope, faith as applied vibration, faith as certainty that moves through your entire being and changes what's possible. Travis thought about the years he'd spent in church, kneeling, praying, asking, begging, feeling nothing, feeling abandoned. Had he been doing it wrong the whole time? You weren't doing it wrong. You were doing what you were taught, but the teaching was incomplete. Prayer isn't about asking an external God for favors. It's about aligning your consciousness with the frequency of what you desire. It's about becoming the change, not requesting it. The being moved closer, and Travis noticed the golden halo was almost solid now, radiating gentle warmth. When you fixed my ship, you didn't just use your hands. You used your heart, your intention, your desire to help. That's creation. That's manifestation. That's what Jesus came to teach. Travis felt tears forming. He didn't know why. The words were breaking something open inside him, something that had been locked and rusted for years. The being's presence dissolved his resistance, dissolved his fear, dissolved the walls he'd built around himself after the divorce, after the faith died, after everything fell apart. "I've felt disconnected for so long," Travis whispered. "I know. I feel it in you. But you're not broken. You never were. You were just operating at a lower frequency. Pain does that. Guilt does that. Shame does that. They lower your vibration, and you forget what you're capable of." The spiral on the ship's panel spun faster now, casting golden light that danced with the blue. Jesus showed your species how to elevate, how to rise above the heavy frequencies of fear, anger, separation. He lived from love, pure love, unconditional love, and that frequency changed everything around him. Healed bodies, transformed hearts, shifted reality itself. Travis wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "And you detected this? Your people?" "Yes." When his physical form died, something extraordinary happened. The earth itself responded. His consciousness, so aligned with love, so elevated in frequency, created a pulse that rippled through space. "We detected it from very far away. We've been watching your species ever since." Travis sat in silence. The rain had stopped without him noticing. The air felt charged, electric, sacred. The being stood quietly, giving him time to process. "You're beginning to understand," it said finally. "This is why I showed you, why I let you help me. You needed to remember what you're capable of. You needed to feel it again." Travis looked at his hands, ordinary hands, scarred and calloused from decades of work, but they'd just done something impossible. They'd connected with technology that shouldn't exist, had channeled energy through intention, had helped heal something alien and beautiful. Maybe he wasn't as disconnected as he thought. Maybe he'd never been. The darkness inside him, the weight, the emptiness, the void, began to crack. Just a little, just enough to let light in. The being reached toward the crystal at the ship's core. Its long, delicate fingers touched the surface gently, reverently, like touching something sacred. The crystal blazed brighter, and then a wave of golden light burst from it. Not harsh, not blinding, warm, enveloping, alive. Travis gasped as the light washed over him, and suddenly he was seeing things, not with his eyes, with something else. Images appeared in his mind, clear, vivid, like memories that weren't his. An ancient landscape, desert, mountains in the distance, stone buildings baked by sun, and walking through it, a figure, luminous, not glowing in some cartoon way, but radiating something. Presence, power, love so intense it was almost visible. Travis knew who it was without being told. Jesus. But not the pale, sad figure from church paintings. This was someone fully alive, fully present, fully connected to something vast and beautiful. The being's voice came soft through the vision. When he died, the scene shifted. A hill, 3 crosses, darkness gathering, and then the moment, the final breath, and the earth responded. Travis saw it happening, felt it happening, a pulse of energy erupting from that place, pure, concentrated. Love and consciousness compressed into a single wave that expanded outward, through the ground, through the air, through everything, up, out, beyond the atmosphere, into space. "We detected that pulse," the being said quietly, "from very far away, farther than you can imagine. It traveled through the galaxy like a signal, like a beacon, announcing that something extraordinary had happened on this small planet." Travis felt his body covered in goosebumps, every hair standing on end. "We've been watching your species ever since, waiting, wondering if you would understand what he showed you." The vision faded slowly. Travis found himself back in the clearing, the golden light still pulsing gently from the ship's crystal. His breath came in short gasps. That really happened? Yes. Consciousness at that level of coherence, that depth of love, creates effects that ripple through all of reality. He wasn't performing magic. He was demonstrating what human consciousness can do when fully aligned with truth. The blue light from the ship was changing now, growing warmer, more golden, almost human in its quality. Travis felt the energy moving through his chest, gentle but undeniable, like something inside him was responding to the frequency, waking up, coming back online. He showed your people how to heal, how to manifest, how to transform matter with consciousness, not as miracles, but as natural expression of what you are, what you've always been. The being's voice carried such peace that Travis wanted to weep, but the message became distorted, turned into religion, into rules, into separation between holy and ordinary, between God and human. He didn't come to create that separation. He came to dissolve it. Travis thought about every Sunday in church, every prayer on his knees, every desperate plea for God to fix his life, fix his marriage, fix him. All of it coming from a place of separation, of smallness, of powerlessness. "I never understood," he whispered. "Few do. Your species is just beginning to remember, just beginning to wake up to what you're capable of. That's why some of us come here, to help, to guide, to remind." The being touched the crystal again, and another wave of warmth flowed through the clearing. "Love reorganizes everything," it said. "That's not poetry, that's physics. Love is the highest frequency. When you operate from that frequency, reality reshapes itself around you. Illness heals, relationships transform, circumstances shift, not because you're asking an external God for favors, but because you're aligning with the creative force that underlies all existence." Travis felt tears streaming down his face now. Thoughts create, emotions activate. That's the formula. Think with clarity, feel with intensity, believe with certainty, and watch what becomes real. He looked at his life, all of it. The failed marriage, the abandoned faith, the years of going through motions, the disconnection, the emptiness. He saw it all as disconnected wires, circuits that had been broken, energy that couldn't flow because the channels were misaligned, just like the ship. "I've been doing this to myself," Travis said, the realization hitting him hard. Yes, not consciously, not intentionally, but through patterns of thought, through beliefs about yourself, through the frequency you've been holding. Pain and guilt are low vibrations. They create disconnection. They block flow. The golden halo behind the being was radiant now. Travis could feel the warmth of it on his face. But you can change frequency. You already are. Right now, in this moment, you're vibrating differently than you were an hour ago. Can you feel it? Travis closed his eyes. And yes, he could feel it. Something lighter in his chest. Something warmer. Something that felt almost like hope. That's your natural state returning. That's who you actually are beneath the pain. Jesus came to show your species this, to prove it's possible, to demonstrate that humans aren't small, powerless creatures needing rescue. You're conscious beings capable of shaping reality through love. Travis opened his eyes. The clearing looked different now, brighter, more alive, or maybe he was just seeing it clearly for the first time in years. Travis turned away. He couldn't look at the being anymore, couldn't hold the weight of what he'd just learned. He walked a few steps and sat down hard in the wet grass, his legs giving out beneath him. The guilt hit him like a wave. Not new guilt, old guilt, ancient guilt that had been buried but never healed. The divorce, 5 years ago, and it still burned like an open wound. He'd failed her, failed himself, failed everything he was supposed to be as a man, as a husband, as a Christian. He remembered the last day clearly now, her crying alone in their bedroom while he sat in the truck in the driveway, unable to go inside, unable to face her pain, unable to offer anything that would help. He'd been empty then, completely empty, and she'd needed him to be full. The shame rose up in his throat, hot and choking. He'd abandoned his own light, let it go out, disconnected himself from everything good and real and true, and then blamed God for the darkness. Travis put his head in his hands. The being moved closer, slowly, carefully, not invading his space, just offering presence. The voice came gentle as rain. "You are not broken." Travis shook his head, tears streaming through his fingers. "You don't know what I've done, what I didn't do." "You are not broken," the being repeated. "You are disconnected. There's a difference." The words touched something deep in Travis's chest, like invisible hands reaching into the places he'd locked away. Broken means damaged beyond repair. Disconnected means the wiring is intact but the current isn't flowing. You can reconnect. You already are reconnecting. Travis looked up at the creature through blurred vision. The golden halo behind it pulsed gently, radiating warmth that he could feel even from several feet away. "I hurt her," he whispered. "My wife. I hurt her by being nothing, by going dead inside while she was still trying. I know. I feel that pain in you." The memory came flooding back with terrible clarity. Her face, that last morning, eyes red from crying, suitcase by the door. "I don't know who you are anymore," she'd said. "It's like you're not even here." And she'd been right. He hadn't been there. Not really. Just a shell going through motions. But this time, the memory didn't come with the usual violence, the usual sharp edges that cut and never stopped cutting. This time it came with clarity. He could see it now from outside himself, see the man he'd been, lost, scared, operating from such a low frequency that he'd pulled everyone around him down into the darkness. The ship pulsed beside them, blue light mixing with gold, and Travis realized something strange. The ship's rhythm matched his breathing, in, out, perfectly synchronized, like it was connected to him somehow. "You feel that?" the being asked. "Yes. You're not separate from anything here. Not from me. Not from my ship. Not from the trees or the rain or the ground beneath you. Consciousness connects everything. When you hurt, the field around you hurts. When you heal, the field heals." Travis wiped his face with his sleeve. "I don't know how to heal this." "Guilt is not the path," the being said softly. "Guilt is low frequency. It keeps you trapped in the past, reliving what cannot be changed. Light is the path. Forgiveness, compassion, love. These are high frequencies that dissolve what guilt creates." The words landed in Travis's chest like truth he'd always known, but never admitted. "I don't know if I can forgive myself." "You can. But first you must understand that you were doing the best you could with the consciousness you had at that time. You didn't fail. You were operating from disconnection, from pain, from patterns you inherited and never questioned." Travis felt something crack open inside him, deep, fundamental. "You're not the villain in your own story. You're a person who forgot their light. That's all. And now you're remembering." The tears came harder now. Not painful tears, releasing tears. 5 years of holding everything in. 5 years of carrying guilt like chains. 5 years of believing he was fundamentally broken. All of it pouring out into the wet grass and the night air. The being didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in compassionate silence, holding space. The golden light around it grew softer, more gentle, like arms that didn't touch but still embraced. Travis cried until there was nothing left, until his chest felt empty but not hollow, empty like a room that's been cleaned, ready for something new. When he finally looked up, the being was watching him with those endless black eyes, and for the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, Travis didn't feel alone. Not alone in his pain, not alone in his failure, not alone in the universe. Something here understood him, completely, without judgment, without disappointment, without conditions. "The change begins exactly here," the being said quietly, "in this moment, when you stop running from your pain and let it transform into something else." "What does it transform into?" Travis asked, his voice rough. "Light. All pain can become light when you stop resisting it, when you let it move through you instead of storing it inside you." The ship pulsed brighter. The spiral symbol on the panel spun faster. Travis felt warmth spreading through his chest again. Different this time. Not the warmth of revelation, the warmth of healing. He took a deep breath. The air tasted clean, new, like the world had just been washed. Or maybe he had. The being moved closer now. Not intrusive, gentle. It stood a few feet from where Travis sat in the grass, the golden halo casting soft light across both of them. "Stand," it said quietly. Travis got to his feet slowly, his legs stiff from sitting, his body exhausted from crying. "Place your hand over your heart." Travis hesitated. The being gestured with one long, delicate finger toward his chest. The golden light around it seemed to guide the motion, illuminating the path. Travis lifted his right hand and placed it flat against his chest, over his heart. "Now close your eyes. Breathe deeper. Feel." Travis closed his eyes. The darkness behind his eyelids wasn't empty anymore. It pulsed with the same blue and golden light that surrounded them. He breathed in slowly, deeply, and he felt it. Something in his chest. Not his heartbeat, though he could feel that too. Something else. A warmth, a vibration, an energy moving beneath his palm. "That is your heart transmitting," the being said. "It never stopped. You just stopped paying attention." The warmth grew stronger. Travis focused on it, letting everything else fall away. The cold ground, the damaged ship, the strange creature standing nearby. Just the warmth under his hand, just the pulse of energy in his chest. Your heart is not just a muscle pumping blood. It is a transmitter of consciousness, of frequency, of whatever you choose to feel. Travis breathed deeper. The warmth expanded, moved through his ribs, down into his stomach, up into his throat. Feel the vibration of truth, not truth as facts, truth as alignment, as coherence, as resonance with what is real. Images began appearing behind his closed eyes. Memories. His wedding day, his wife laughing, the way her eyes lit up when he walked in the door in those early years. Joy. Pure joy. He'd forgotten that feeling existed. "You can still feel that," the being said gently. "Joy didn't die. Love didn't die. They just got buried beneath pain, beneath guilt, beneath the low frequencies that accumulated over time." More images came. His daughter when she was young, before the divorce, before everything fell apart. Her small hand in his, her trust, her love. The memories brought tears again, but different tears, not pain tears. Something else. "You can still love," the being continued, "despite everything, despite the failures, despite the loss. Love is not dependent on circumstances. It is a frequency you can choose to hold at any time." Travis felt his chest growing warmer. The energy under his palm pulsed stronger now, spreading up into his shoulders, down his arms. Faith is not believing in something outside yourself. Faith is emotional action aligned with love. It is choosing to hold a high frequency regardless of what's happening around you. That's what Jesus demonstrated. That's what your species is learning. The spiral symbol on the ship's panel lit up again, brighter, golden, spinning. Travis could see it even with his eyes closed, like it was projecting directly into his consciousness. When you align your heart with love, with gratitude, with compassion, with forgiveness, you create a field around you that affects everything. Matter, energy, other people, circumstances. This is not mystical. This is how consciousness works. Travis felt something happening inside him, something reconnecting, like circuits that had been dead for years suddenly coming back online. The vibration in his chest expanded further, into his arms, his hands, his face. Warmth, light, energy. "You are being restored," the being said softly. "Not by me, by your own consciousness choosing alignment, choosing coherence, choosing love." Travis breathed out slowly. The weight he'd carried for 5 years was lifting, not gone completely, but lighter, so much lighter. This is what prayer actually is. Not begging, not asking, not pleading with an external God to fix things. Prayer is tuning your consciousness to the frequency of what you desire, feeling it as real, letting your heart transmit that reality into the field around you. Travis opened his eyes slowly. The clearing looked different. Everything looked different. Sharper, clearer, more alive. The being stood before him, the golden halo radiant now, filling the space between them with warmth. "You understand now?" "I think so," Travis said quietly. "I've been transmitting pain, guilt, disconnection, and the world responded with more of the same. Yes. And now? Travis looked down at his hand still resting on his chest. He could feel it clearly now. The pulse, the transmission, the frequency moving through him. Now I can choose something different. Yes, every moment is a choice. Every thought, every emotion, every vibration you hold. You are not powerless. You never were. You just forgot. The warmth in Travis's chest expanded one more time, into his legs, his feet, through his whole body. He felt light, almost weightless. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt something he thought was gone forever. Hope, real hope. Not the desperate, grasping kind that comes from fear. The certain kind that comes from knowing. Travis stood and walked back to the ship. His legs felt steadier now, stronger. The damaged panel still hung open, the crystalline core glowing with stable blue light. But there was more work to do. He could see it clearly now. Several smaller connections still needed attention. Energy channels that weren't quite aligned. Circuits that could flow better. He knelt beside the opening and picked up his tools. But this time something was different. He wasn't just working with his hands anymore. He was working with something else. Something deeper. The intention he'd discovered. The consciousness the being had shown him. His fingers found the first misaligned conduit almost automatically, like they knew where to go before his mind caught up. You feel it now, the being said, watching from a few feet away. You're not forcing. You're flowing. Travis nodded, not looking up from his work. The pieces seemed to cooperate with him now. The ship responding to his touch like it recognized him, like it trusted him. He adjusted the conduit gently, and it shifted into perfect alignment with barely any effort. The blue light flowing through it brightened immediately. You're not separate from what you're fixing. You're part of the same field, the same consciousness. When you understand that, work becomes something else entirely. Travis moved to the next connection. His hands knew what to do, not from training, not from experience, from something deeper. Intuition, connection, flow. The being remained still, radiating that calm presence, that golden light. Travis could feel the serenity washing over him like warm water. He worked steadily, reconnecting circuits, aligning channels, stabilizing flow patterns. Each adjustment brought more coherence to the ship's energy system. The blue light pulsed stronger with each repair, more vibrant, more alive. Travis reached for a damaged wire. No, not a wire, something more organic than that, and held it carefully. It had been severed during the crash, the energy inside barely flickering. He closed his eyes for just a moment, focused his intention. Heal, connect, restore. The conduit warmed in his hands. When he opened his eyes, the light inside was flowing again. He guided it to its connection point, and it locked into place with a soft pulse of golden light. The ship hummed, deep, resonant, satisfied. Travis sat back and looked at his work. Everything was aligned now. Everything was flowing, the energy moving through the ship's systems like blood through veins. He reached for the final connection, the last piece. His hands were steady, certain. He connected it smoothly, confidently, and the panel blazed with light. Golden spirals erupted across its surface, spinning and dancing. The ship emitted a sound, soft, musical, like a breath of relief after holding pain for too long. Travis felt something surge in his chest. Pride. Real pride. Not arrogance, not ego, just satisfaction. The deep satisfaction of doing something well, of helping, of being useful. He hadn't felt that in years. The being stepped closer, the golden halo brighter now, almost solid. You have reconnected more than a ship. The words landed in Travis's heart like a key turning in a lock. He looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, ordinary hands, but they'd just done something extraordinary. Not because they were special, because he'd remembered what he was capable of. Helping is prayer, the being said gently. Service is worship. When you give from a place of love, from a place of genuine desire to assist another being, you are operating at the highest frequency. You are being what Jesus came to teach. Travis felt tears forming again, but not sad tears, grateful tears. I thought prayer had to be words, kneeling, asking God for things. That is one form, but the truest prayer is action aligned with love. It's using your gifts to serve, to heal, to restore. What you just did here, Fixing my ship with genuine compassion and skill, that was prayer. Pure prayer. The blue light from the ship was constant now. Strong, coherent, beautiful. No more flickering, no more instability. Just steady, radiant energy flowing through every channel. Travis stood slowly and looked at the craft. It was alive again, fully alive. And so was he. He could feel it in his chest, in his bones, in every cell of his body. The disconnection was fading. The void was filling. The light was returning. Faith is returning to you, the being observed, not as obligation, not as duty, not as something you must perform to earn God's approval, but as internal force, as power that flows through you when you align with love. Travis nodded. He understood now. Faith wasn't about believing the right things or saying the right prayers or following the right rules. Faith was frequency. Faith was choosing love over fear. Faith was acting from your heart instead of your wounds. Faith was what he'd just experienced. Connection, flow, trust that something greater was working through him. The ship pulsed one more time, all its systems coming fully online. The golden spiral on the panel spun faster, brighter, then settled into a steady glow. Complete, restored, whole. Travis looked at the being, and the being looked back at him. And in that moment, Travis realized something profound. He hadn't just fixed an alien ship. He'd fixed something in himself. The circuits that had been dead for 5 years were alive again. The energy that had stopped flowing was moving again. The light that had gone out was burning again. He was reconnected. To himself, to his purpose, to something greater than his pain. And it felt like coming home. The being moved closer. Its approach carried no threat, no urgency. Just gratitude. Deep, silent gratitude that Travis could feel without words. The golden halo expanded behind it, filling the clearing with warm light that mixed with the ship's steady blue glow. You deserve to know why your help matters. Travis stood still, watching. Not just to me, to your entire species. The being reached toward him, not quite touching, and suddenly Travis's mind filled with images. Brief, vivid, overwhelming. Worlds, distant worlds. Planets orbiting stars he couldn't name. Civilizations spanning galaxies. Beings of light and energy and consciousness so advanced they barely had form anymore. And all of them watching Earth, watching humanity. Your species is waking up, the being said softly. After thousands of years of sleeping, you are beginning to remember what you are, what you've always been capable of. The images shifted. Travis saw humans throughout history, some glowing brighter than others. Teachers, healers, artists, people who'd somehow accessed the higher frequencies and used them to lift others. And at the center of it all, one figure shining brighter than the rest, Jesus. He came to activate this capacity in your species, to show you that it's not reserved for special people or chosen ones. It's your birthright. Every human has access to these frequencies. Every human can operate from love. Every human can create, heal, transform. Travis felt his chest tightening with emotion. No human is born disconnected, the being continued. You all arrive knowing your light, knowing your power, knowing love as your natural state. But pain happens, trauma happens, and slowly, you forget. You lower your frequency. You disconnect from the source. The images changed again. Travis saw himself as a child, bright, open, laughing, then older, dimmer, carrying weight, carrying pain, then after the divorce, almost dark, almost completely disconnected, and then tonight, light returning, circuits reconnecting, energy flowing again. Pain creates distance from your own light, not because the light goes away, but because you stop being able to see it, stop being able to feel it. You forget who you are beneath the wounds. Travis saw his whole life from a different angle now, not as a series of failures, but as a journey through disconnection back to connection, not as proof that he was broken, but as proof that he could heal. The guilt that had burned in his chest for 5 years began dissolving, not erased, not forgotten, just transformed into something else. Understanding, compassion, forgiveness. You were never the villain, the being said gently. You were consciousness experiencing what happens when it forgets itself, and now you're remembering. Travis felt tears streaming down his face again, but these were different from all the other tears tonight. These were tears of release, of recognition, of coming home to himself. Compassion reignites the soul, the being continued. Not pity, not sympathy, but true compassion, the ability to feel with another being, to recognize their pain as your own, their joy as your own, their struggle as your own. That's what connects everything. The golden halo pulsed brighter. Travis felt it in his chest like sunlight warming him from the inside. You have always had this gift. You just didn't know. Every time you helped someone, every time you fixed something broken, every time you showed up for your work with integrity, you were transmitting love. You were operating from higher frequency. You just couldn't see it. Travis looked at his hands again. Ordinary hands that had done extraordinary things tonight. Not because they were special, because he'd remembered what they were capable of, what he was capable of. The ability to love, to serve, to create, to heal. These are not supernatural powers. They are natural expressions of human consciousness operating at its intended frequency. Jesus proved this. And now your species is beginning to understand. The ship pulsed in perfect rhythm with the golden halo now. Blue and gold light dancing together, weaving patterns in the air that looked almost like sacred geometry. The atmosphere felt thick with presence, not oppressive, sacred, like the clearing had become a temple. Travis could feel it pressing against his skin, flowing through his lungs, vibrating in his bones. You are being transformed, the being said quietly. Not into something new, into something you've always been but forgot. You are remembering your light, your frequency, your power to affect reality through consciousness aligned with love. Travis understood now. Everything that had happened tonight. The crash, the repair, the revelations, the breaking, the healing. All of it designed to wake him up, to reconnect him, to show him what was possible when he stopped operating from pain and started operating from purpose. This is happening across your planet, the being said. Millions of humans waking up, remembering, choosing higher frequencies, choosing love over fear, choosing creation over destruction. This is why we watch, why some of us come here, to help, to guide, to remind you of what you are. The golden light filled the entire clearing now. Travis stood in the center of it, feeling more whole than he'd felt in his entire life. Not because his problems were solved, not because his past was erased, but because he finally understood. He wasn't broken. He was just reconnecting. And that made all the difference. The ship began to change. Travis felt it before he saw it. A shift in the air, a change in frequency. The energy around them building, gathering, preparing. The blue light intensified, pulsing stronger now. The golden spirals on the panel spun faster, brighter, weaving patterns that seemed to reach beyond the physical into something else entirely. The being stood before him, silent, and then light erupted from it. Not blinding, not painful, just pure gratitude made visible. Golden light that washed over Travis like a wave, carrying with it emotions he could feel but couldn't name. Thankfulness, recognition, something that felt almost like love. No words came, none were needed. Travis felt his throat tighten. He didn't want the being to leave. The thought surprised him. An hour ago he'd been terrified. Now he wanted this strange, beautiful creature to stay, to keep teaching him, to keep showing him what was possible. But the being's voice came soft in his mind. You already have what you need. I don't know if I do, Travis said out loud, his voice rough. You do. Everything I showed you tonight is already inside you. It always was. You just needed to remember, to feel it again, to know it's real. The ship's panel blazed with golden spirals now, continuous and hypnotic. Travis stepped closer to the craft and his reflection caught in the metallic surface of the hull. He barely recognized himself. His face was different, not changed physically, but something in his eyes, something in the way he held himself. He looked alive. The being moved beside him, and Travis felt its presence in his mind one more time. Gentle, intimate, final. You have reconnected to love. That's all that matters. That's all there ever is. Everything else, healing, manifestation, transformation, flows from that reconnection. Travis wanted to say something, wanted to thank the being, wanted to ask 1,000 questions he didn't know how to form, but his voice wouldn't come. The being tilted its head in that gentle way, and Travis felt understanding pass between them without words. Live from this frequency. Let your heart transmit what you choose. Help others remember what you remember tonight. That's all. That's enough. The ship began to lift, slowly at first, inches above the ground. No sound, no engines roaring. Just smooth, impossible ascent. The crushed vegetation beneath it straightened as the weight lifted, like the earth itself was exhaling. Blue and golden light flooded the clearing, turning everything ethereal. The bent trees, the wet grass. Travis standing alone, looking up. The field around him felt electric, charged with something beyond electricity, beyond energy as he'd understood it. Consciousness, pure consciousness moving through everything. The ship rose higher, and the being stood at what must have been a viewing port, those large black eyes fixed on Travis, holding his gaze. The golden halo behind the creature blazed like sunrise. Travis raised his hand, not waving goodbye, just acknowledging, honoring what had passed between them. The being didn't move, but Travis felt its response in his chest. Warmth, gratitude, connection that wouldn't break just because distance increased. The ship ascended faster now, moving upward through the October air with grace that defied physics. The light around it intensified, and for a moment the entire clearing was bright as morning, even though it was past midnight. Travis squinted but didn't look away. He watched until the craft became a point of light among the stars. Then that point blinked once, twice, and vanished. The clearing fell into darkness. Normal darkness, natural darkness. Just the moon behind clouds and the distant glow of the distribution tower's emergency lights. Travis stood perfectly still, breathing, just breathing. The rain had stopped completely now. The air smelled clean, new, like the world had been washed and everything was starting fresh. He felt peace. Not the desperate peace of someone trying to convince themselves everything was okay. Real peace. Deep peace. Peace that came from knowing something fundamental had changed inside him. He wasn't going back to the void. He couldn't go back even if he wanted to. Something had been switched on inside him that couldn't be switched off again. The circuits were live. The energy was flowing. The light was burning. Travis put his hand over his heart. He could still feel it. The vibration. The transmission. The frequency he'd discovered tonight. It was his now. Not given by the being. Remembered by him. He looked around the clearing one last time. The crushed vegetation. The scorched earth where the ship had rested. The bent trees that would straighten in time. Evidence that something impossible had happened here. But Travis didn't need evidence. He could feel the truth of it in every cell of his body. He walked back to his truck slowly, his tool bag hanging from one hand, his flashlight from the other. The distribution tower stood dark against the sky, still waiting for repair. Travis smiled. He'd come here to fix an electrical problem, and he'd fixed something much more important instead. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, and sat there for a moment. The night looked different now. Not dark, luminous, like everything was glowing from within. Or maybe he was just seeing clearly for the first time in 5 years. Travis put the truck in gear and drove slowly back down the access road toward the highway. Behind him the clearing was empty, but the frequency remained, humming in the air, in the ground, in him. The night had been reborn, and so had he. 3 months passed. Travis Ellington's life looked the same from the outside. Same truck, same tools, same electrical work across the rural counties of Kentucky. But everything was different. He woke up differently now, not dragging himself out of bed after hitting snooze 3 times, but rising naturally, feeling something he'd forgotten existed, anticipation, like each day held possibility instead of just obligation. He started praying again, not the desperate pleading prayers from before, not the rote recitations he'd learned in childhood. Real prayer, conscious prayer, sitting quietly in the mornings with his hand over his heart, feeling the vibration there, choosing the frequency he wanted to transmit into the world. Gratitude, compassion, love. Sometimes words came, often they didn't. It didn't matter. The prayer was in the feeling, in the alignment, in the choice to operate from something higher than his wounds. The guilt about the divorce began dissolving, not erased overnight but fading gradually, like fog burning off in morning sun. It transformed into something else. Understanding, acceptance, forgiveness. For her, for himself, for the person he'd been when he didn't know better. He saw now that he'd been operating at such a low frequency back then that disconnection was inevitable. Not because he was bad, not because he'd failed some cosmic test, just because pain lowers vibration, and lowered vibration creates more pain. It was a cycle, and he'd been trapped in it, but not anymore. Now, when he thought about his ex-wife, he felt peace. He hoped she was happy, hoped she'd found someone who could be present with her in ways he couldn't back then. And the hoping felt genuine, not forced, not performed. He meant it. One afternoon in late January, he ran into her at the grocery store. His heart jumped when he saw her in the produce section, but not with panic, with something gentler. She looked good, healthy, lighter than he remembered. "Travis," she said, surprised. "Hey, Marie," he smiled, a real smile. They talked for a few minutes. Small talk, safe talk. "How are you?" "Fine." "Cold weather?" "Yeah." But when they parted, she paused. "You seem different," she said, studying his face. "I am different." "Good different?" "Yeah, good different." She smiled then too. "I'm glad." And Travis knew she meant it. There was no bitterness there, no resentment. Just two people who'd hurt each other finding their way to something like peace. He drove home feeling full instead of empty. His work changed too. Every job became an act of service, an opportunity to help, to fix what was broken, to restore connection. He showed up earlier, stayed later, did better work than required, not out of obligation, not to prove anything, just because it felt good to be useful, to apply his skills with genuine care, to know that what he did mattered. Each repair was prayer, each connection was worship, each moment of helping was love made visible. The people he worked for noticed. "You're different lately," old Mrs. Patterson said when he fixed her barn lights. "Happier." "I am," Travis said simply. "What changed?" Travis thought about that night in October, the crashed ship, the being with golden light, the revelations that shattered and rebuilt him. "I remembered something I'd forgotten," he said finally. She waited for more, but he just smiled and gathered his tools. Some things couldn't be explained, only experienced. The weight in his chest, the one that had pressed down on him for 5 years, disappeared completely. Not all at once, but gradually, like snow melting in spring. One day he realized it was gone, and he couldn't remember exactly when it had lifted. He just felt light, free, whole. Compassion became his guide. Not pity, not sympathy, but true compassion. The ability to feel with people, to recognize their struggles as part of the same human experience he was moving through. When someone was short with him, he didn't take it personally anymore. He just wondered what pain they were carrying. When someone needed help, he gave it freely, without keeping score. When someone succeeded, he felt genuine joy for them. The frequency of love was reorganizing his entire life. His relationships improved, his health improved, even his finances improved. Though he wasn't trying to make more money, things just flowed better when he operated from higher frequency. He understood now what Jesus had actually taught. Not rules, not religion, not the separation of holy and ordinary, but the power of human consciousness aligned with love, the ability to transmit frequency through the heart, to create reality through coherent thought and emotion, to heal and transform by choosing light over darkness. It wasn't mystical, it was practical, natural, available to everyone. Travis walked through the world differently now, not like someone carrying a burden, like someone who'd found his own soul again and remembered how to live from it. On a cold February morning, he parked his truck on a hill overlooking the valley where he'd grown up. The sun was rising, painting the sky gold and pink. He sat on the tailgate, coffee steaming in his hands, and felt the vibration in his chest. Strong, clear, constant, and he understood finally, completely. God had never been far away. God had never abandoned him. He'd just forgotten the light he was. Disconnected from his own frequency, lowered his vibration so far that he couldn't feel the presence that was always there. But now he was awake. Now he remembered. And all across the planet, others were waking too, remembering too, choosing higher frequencies, choosing love, choosing to be what they'd always been capable of being. The awakening was happening, not through force, not through preaching, through experience, through remembering, through reconnection. Travis smiled and took a sip of coffee. The sun cleared the mountains, flooding the valley with light, and he felt it in his heart. The same light, the same frequency, the same love, transmitting outward, touching everything, reconnecting the world one heart at a time.